There was a guy, times are hard, goes into a grocery store, and while he's in there, he realizes he doesn't have enough money. And so he ends up stealing a can of peaches. He gets arrested, and he's standing in front of the judge, and the judge looks and says, "Sir, how many peaches were in the can?" And he said there were 5 peaches. And he said, "Well, here's what I'm going to do." He goes, "I'm going to give you 1 week in jail for every peach that was in that can." And you hear in the back kind of this just, and the judge just kind of looks around, and the guy's wife just goes, "Your Honor, may I say something, please?" And he says, "Absolutely." She stands up and she goes, "I just have to say this. He also stole a can of peas." Well, listen, I don't know about you, but I know this, that a scent is very unique, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Sometimes you walk into a room and you smell something and it smells so good and you're like, "Man, what is that?" Sometimes you walk into the house and you know your mom or your wife or somebody's making dinner and it just smells so good and it's throughout the entire house. Sometimes you have a candle going and you can just smell it everywhere and it just smells awesome. Well, when I was in high school, we didn't have a locker room for the football team. And the football field was off-site from where our school campus was. And so we would drive over there, and then our locker room was the parking lot. And we would stand in the parking lot, and we would get ready for football. And then where we stored our pads after football was in the trunks of our cars. And so you can imagine, on a 100-degree day, you go out, you sweat, you get done, you throw the pads in the trunk of the car, you shut that trunk, you drive that car to school the next day, it sits in the heat all day long. Man, you pop that truck open and man, that smell will hit you hard. The crazy thing is sometimes what ends up happening is in spite of that smell being so awful, sometimes you get used to a smell that you should never get used to. You know what I'm talking about? Sometimes your nose doesn't even recognize it anymore because you've allowed it and it's been around for so long that you get in the car and you don't smell it, but somebody else gets in the car and they're like, dry heaving and vomiting all over there. Oh, what is that? And it's just so bad. There was this couple that we went over to their house one time, and they had a dog, and you walk into their house, and you know the smell of wet dog? That's what their entire house smelled like. And the problem was, they couldn't smell it. And so we're like, "Hey, your house stinks." And they're like, "What? No, it doesn't." I'm like, "Yeah, it does. It smells terrible." And so I was like, "Good grief. It smells like wet dog in here." And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "Yeah." Because a lot of times what happens is what you get around, you begin to accept, and then you begin to ignore a lot of times. You know, when you were growing up, teenage boys love Axe. I mean, they still do today. You walk into, you go to camp with us and go into the dorm room, and it's just, that. And it is a scent and a smell that just, will slap you in your face right when you walk in, and you're like, and you can't hardly breathe because it's so thick and heavy. It is tough. Well, Axe had this commercial to where if you'll spray this on, the girls just love it, you know what I mean? And they're just all, like, "Oh my gosh, it smells so good." It's a lie. Doesn't smell that good. Doesn't last that long. I've gone through so many of these cans, it's not even funny. And it literally, I think, repels my wife. It does not attract her to me. Like, she's like, "This is disgusting." And there's just things about scents. It's funny. Growing in high school, when you would walk down the hall, you would get the smell of Axe, or you would get the smell of cucumber melon bath and body lotion for the girls. Man, They bathed in that stuff. Like it was just all over the place. It was crazy. But you smell these things and you automatically begin to attribute it to something. You automatically begin to just think about something. It takes your mind somewhere. And Paul talks about this in 2 Corinthians. That's where we are today. 2 Corinthians chapter 2. Paul says this, starting in verse 14. But thanks be to God. He says, who in Christ always leads us in a triumphant procession. And he said, and through us, the fragrance of knowledge of him everywhere. For we are the aroma of Christ among those who are being saved and among those who are perishing. And he says, to one, a fragrance from death to death. And he says, and to others, a fragrance from life to life. Who is significant for these things? We are not like so many peddlers of the word of God, but we are men of sincerity and commissioned by God in the sight of God. So we speak in Christ. Here's the thing Paul is saying for you and I. He's saying you and I as the church, you and I as followers of Christ, we are the cologne of Christ to a lost and dying world. We're the scent of Christ. That's what we are. We are the smell, the aroma of Christ to a lost and dying world. And so the first thought that I want us to think about is this, the parade. Paul said this. He says that God always leads us in a triumphant procession. The interesting thing is when you and I begin to think about a parade, we think about an old tractor, pulling hay bales. We think about fire trucks. We think about, the school marching band. We think about cheerleaders. We think about candy being thrown out. We think about cars, convertibles, with people sitting in them and waving as they drive down. We think of all these different things when we think about a parade. We think about hot dogs. We think about celebration. We think about joy. All these things come to mind when we think about a parade. But here's the thing. When Paul begins to speak this, these people have a completely different idea of what a parade is compared to you and I. See what this represented? This represented a general coming home from war. They had been out at battle. They had been fighting. They've lost a lot of people. It maybe had gone the way they wanted, and then it didn't go, and then all of a sudden they fought back, and they won the victory. And they finally conquered the enemy. And they finally brought the victory back home. And now when they're coming down the street in the middle of the city, the general's riding on this gold chariot. He's covered in all the honor, the sashes, the robes, everything as he's coming through the middle of town. Everybody in the army is marching right behind him. And everybody in the city is shouting, is screaming, is celebrating in triumph. Because this isn't just a parade. This is a victory parade. They've been in battle. They've been in war. They've seen death. They've seen struggle. They've seen, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And now all of a sudden they've come through and they've won. And now they're coming back home. And wives and kids are celebrating as they see their family marching, as they see their dad marching through the street. Friends are watching as they see them coming down the middle of the street. But there was victory that was taking place. But then the interesting thing is what Paul's saying here is he's saying, in the back of the parade, this is where the priests were. And it was the job of the priest to set the scent for the city. And what they would do is they would burn incense in the back following the parade as they walked through, and this incense would cover and spread through the entire city. So that then anybody in the city would, I hear the trumpets, I hear the shouting, I hear all the voices, I hear the celebration. I smell victory. I smell it. It was a different scent. And they would walk behind, and they would have this as they go behind. And it was their job to then spread the scent wherever they went. And to let that scent go so that everybody knew that victory had come. Everybody knew that we had won the battle. Everybody knew that the enemy had been conquered. The enemy had been defeated. And we are victorious. And everybody, because of that, celebrates. Everybody, because of that, begins to just come out to the parade, and they just begin to honor those that had fought in the parade. Here's what Paul is saying to you and I. He's saying, I want you to understand as a follower of Christ that the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords is starting a parade, and he is coming down the middle of the city. He is walking down through the earth. And it's your job and it's my job to be the scent that is the aroma for everybody around that begins to, I smell victory. We've won. The king has won. The king is coming. There's a parade. There's joy. There's celebration. And he's saying you're supposed to be the scent that lets everybody else know that we are not defeated, that we have not lost, but that we have won the victory, that sin has been defeated, that death has been defeated, and that Jesus, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, is making his way to sit on his throne. And you and I get to carry the scent for the entire world. We get to spray the scent for people. We get to be the ones that bring the aroma into the room, the aroma of victory. The aroma of we were slaves to sin. We were in this great battle. We were in this great struggle. We were defeated in death to sin. But because of Jesus Christ and what he did on the cross and the victory that he brought, everything changed. So now I get to go around and I get to spray some scent and I get to let people know, man, we are victorious. We have won. Things are different. We get to throw a parade. We get to have a party. We get to go down the middle of the street and we get to celebrate that the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords is victorious. That's what Paul's saying. Come on, somebody. Slap somebody next to you and wake them up. That's good stuff. He's victorious. And Paul's saying it's your job. It's my job to carry the scent. We got a lot of people choking on the front row, I'm not going to lie. Now you know what it's like in a boys' locker room. This is it, right here. But the second thing is this. The second thing is, he says, and through us, God spreads the fragrance of knowledge of him everywhere. This is, thought number 2 is everybody leaves a trail. This is a word, it's a French word. It's sillage. And what sillage means is it's the tail. It's what lingers. It's what lasts. Grandmas seem to have a lot of sillage when they show up, you know what I mean? Your grandma shows up to the house, she sits on the couch, she gets up and leaves, and what happens? That spot when you go sit down, you gotta plop down, and all of a sudden, that scent hits you, and it's just kind of staying with you, you know what I mean? Like you can just walk into her house and you can smell, mothballs, like, wherever she is, you're like, that's grandma. And it just kind of hangs out. Sillage is when you go and you get on an elevator, but nobody's in the elevator, but there's still a scent that lingers. And it's just kind of hanging out. That's what this is. See, sillage is a good fragrance. The difference between something cheap and something good is how long it lasts. And so Sauvage is my favorite cologne. I've had a lot of different cologne, but right now Sauvage is my favorite. The problem is Sauvage is really expensive. And so like this bottle is like $180. And so I've had it for like 3 years, and now all I do is I just I smell it. I don't even spray it anymore. I'm like, I can't afford that. I'm like, that's $5. Jeez. And so it'll just make you sick, but you smell so good, I'm not going to lie. And I love it. But here's the thing that makes this so good and makes this different is this is supposed to stay on and linger all day long. It's supposed to stay with you. That's why it's more expensive. That's why it's different, because it has this sillage to it. To where when you walk into a room, people can pick up on the scent. When you walk out of the room, that scent kind of lingers. See, what Paul's saying here is he's saying it's our responsibility in every room we walk into to leave a mark. You and I shouldn't just be able to walk into a room. We know the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Like, we're his ambassadors. I'm his sent. And so every room that I walk into, I'm not just walking into. Every room that I walk into, I'm carrying the name of the King. And when I walk into that room, by the time I leave, something should be different and something should linger. Kind of like my kids when they were young. My boys are different than girls. Girls never do this. Boys, though, for some reason, passing gas is funny when they're young. And so they would run by, and I'd be sitting on the couch, and they'd run by and just keep running. And I'm like, what in the world? And it just kind of lingers, you know. I'm like, dadgummit. And, but like, they would run out of the room, but something's still lingering there with me. That's what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be a good crop dust for people. No, but we're supposed to walk into a room, and when we walk into a room, what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to leave a mark. When was the last time? Man, you walked out of the room and people really felt it. Man, I can tell they're gone. Man, they walked in. Man, they had an impact on me. There was something different about them. I could just sense their relationship with the Lord. I could sense what God was doing. There's something different. And all of a sudden, because of that, it begins to linger. It begins to hang on. It begins to make them ask questions. It begins to make them think. It begins to make them want to be different because you were in the room. I don't want to continue to be the same person that I was. I've been around people that have that in their life, that when I walk away from them, I'm like, man, I want to be more like Jesus. I want to be different. Bishop Odai in Africa is one of those people. When I went over there and I spent time with him, and just we would go around and just do so much ministry. And I pick up the phone and I'm like, babe, like, I don't know how to describe that. He is the Apostle Paul of Africa. He's the Apostle Paul of today. That's what I told her. And I was like, I want to be that. I was like, every room he walks into, like, the atmosphere and everything changes. Like, you can just tell, like, he walks in and there is a shift that takes place. And I was like, I want that. I don't want to just walk into a room. I want to make things shift, and I want to make things linger when I'm in the room. I want to walk out of the room, and I want people to begin to ask questions and be like, I don't know what it is, but I want that. I don't know what he has, but I want it. I don't know what he's done, but I need it. I need to change some things. I need to be different. I need to start doing some things different because I want what he has. Because when he walks into the room, everything changes. And it just lingers and it just stays with you. And it impacts you. That's what sillage is. And that's what Paul's talking about right here. He said, hey, God spreads his fragrance of knowledge of him to everyone. Right before we started the church, I took a group of students to Washington, D.C., and we were going to help a church planter. I had no clue this is what God was going to call us to do. But I was going to help a church planter, and so we took some students over there, and this guy's trying to plant a church. Well, he wanted to do a car wash. And so he had this car wash, and he had this idea, and it was like a $5 car wash, for such and such church. And so we're out there, and we're washing and everything, and we're just washing these cars and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, we get done, and the people are there, and, they go to hand us $5, and we're like, no. We're giving you $5. And we paid them $5. And so we were bribing people to try to come to church with $5. And so we just kept paying them. And people are like, what? I'm so confused. I thought it was, no, we're giving you money. And the whole time, like we've got all these students and we're out there and we're engaging and we're talking. And it's the middle of the week and he's inviting them to church on Sunday. The pastor that's going to be leading the people is standing in the back. He never approached anyone. He never went to any car. He never had a conversation. He literally stood in the back the whole time. And finally I went over to him and I was like, "What are you doing, man?" He's like, I'm just uncomfortable with people. And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I just get uncomfortable and I just can't, like, I'm not good talking to him and everything." I was like, "You understand the job of a pastor, right? Like, this is your job." And he's like, "I know, but I just get nervous and I get uncomfortable." And I'm like, "You got to get over it." I was like, "We're not going to be here Sunday. Like, we're not going to be at church. It doesn't need to be us having these conversations. They need to connect with you." And literally the entire time, he stood in the back. Didn't have a conversation. Absolutely no salage. Nothing lingered. Nothing stayed. No impact whatsoever. Paul's saying, hey, you've got to be different than that. You got to get out of your comfort zone. You got to quit making excuses. And you've got to be what God has called you to be and what God desires for you to be. And it says this: to one group it's a fragrance of life, and to another it's a fragrance of death. The interesting thing is, as that priest is behind and the fragrance is going over people, behind the army would be all those that had been captured from the other army. And they are literally walking down the street, and as the parade is going on and everybody is celebrating and everybody is rejoicing, one group gets life. The group behind that that's walking through the streets is fixing to go, and they are going to be executed. And they get death. Same sound, same fragrance, same parade, same everything. Completely different experience. See, here's what I want you to understand. It's not your job what happens with the fragrance, how people interpret the fragrance. If people accept Jesus or don't accept Jesus, that's not my job. My job is to present Jesus. My job is to bring them to Jesus so that they have an opportunity to make a decision for Christ. The priest's job was the fragrance. How they interpreted it was not his responsibility. And so what we've got to do is we've just got to walk into rooms and we've got to make an impact and make a difference and let that fragrance linger. And so I want us to look at 5 rooms that we need the fragrance. Room number 1 is this: your marriage. It's interesting that I have this Sauvage right here, but then I also have this. And this is a brand I found online that is a knockoff of this. And the interesting thing is, this is $180, this is $30. But the interesting thing about a knockoff is never the real thing. Doesn't smell the same. It really can pretend for a little while, but it doesn't last. You can just tell the notes and the hint. You can just tell it's just not the same when you've had the real thing. I think the problem in marriage is we know what the real thing is, but oftentimes we're living with the fake. We're pretending. Our marriage is great. And so we walk into church and we're just like, just spraying it all over us. We're just like, we're so good, but honestly, when you go home, you understand and you know that everything you just did was a complete lie. That you're just pretending for everybody around you. You're just faking it for everybody else around you to make them think that everything is great, to make them think that your fragrance is fantastic. When really, it's a complete fake. Your marriage isn't great. It's struggling, it's hurting. But yet when you get around people, what you want them to think is you want them to think something completely different. So you wear a fake. And here's the thing. You can never have the real thing. You'll never get the real thing if you continue to just operate in the bottle that's fake. It'll never be real. This is never the real thing. This is a pretend. This is somebody who said, I'm going to smell this and I'm going to try and figure out exactly what they're doing and I'm going to try to recreate it. And I'm going to put it in a bottle. I'm going to pretend that my marriage is awesome. I'm going to pretend that my marriage is great. I'm going to pretend that everything's going awesome. One of the things that I do a lot is marriage counseling. We spend a lot of time in marriage counseling talking to couples. Part of the issue is this, their marriage is this. It's fake. They pretend like everything's great in front of people, but behind the scenes, it's a wreck, it's a disaster. It's not the same thing, it's falling apart. And so what we've got to do is we've got to fight for a fragrance, the right fragrance. And so what makes a good marriage, what makes a good scent? Well, I'll tell you this, I know for me, if you go to our house right now, you walk into our kitchen, you will see at our kitchen table my wife's Bible sitting there laid open with her devotional right next to it. Every single morning she gets up and she spends time reading her Bible and she spends time on her knees and then she spends time journaling. Every single morning. My time is at the office. I go to the office, I've got my Bible right there, I've got a devotional right there, and I spend my time right there in the office every single day. You can go, you can look at my Bible, you can see it marked up, you can see everything that's in it. You want to know how our marriage is great? And I will tell you this. I can say with all honesty and all certainty that there is nobody that has a better marriage than Heather and I. Not one. We don't fight because she has learned to just do what I say. And so, no, we don't fight. We don't argue. We're both on the same page in where we're going and what we're trying to do and what we want to get accomplished and what God has called us to and the purpose that God has for our lives. We're on the same page. And so on being in the same page, what we get to do is now we get to walk that out. And so what you have to, like, our marriage is awesome. And the reason is because I know her relationship with the Lord and she knows my relationship with the Lord. And because of that, we trust each other. And I've told, the first thing I tell couples every time they walk through the doors with counseling is this. I have never met a couple in my entire life who is passionately chasing after Jesus with all of their heart and being obedient to what he says, and their marriage is falling apart. Ever. And so if you want a great marriage, then you chase after God with everything that you have. Because then what's going to happen? He's going to then begin to convict you and be like, hey, you treat your wife this way. Hey, don't talk like that. Don't respond like that. Hey, be a servant. Hey, love. Hey, don't be rude. And all of a sudden, he's going to begin to convict. And because I desire a right relationship with the Lord, I have to respond. And I have to do the right thing. And so that's why our relationship is the way that it is. But what you've got to do is you've got to fight for your relationship with the Lord in order to have a great relationship in your marriage. And that's the reason that I have a great relationship in my marriage. And so the second thing is this, your family. Your kids are downhill of everything that you do. Or not downhill, they're downwind of everything that you do. They're downhill of everything. They hear everything, they see everything. And they have the strongest nose in the building. You know what their fragrance is? Their fragrance is that fragrance of the past in remembrance. You know, you can walk somewhere and all of a sudden, you know, somebody's got, you know, cologne on and you walk past them and all of a sudden, you know, you're just walking through Target and all of a sudden that smell hits you and it takes you back somewhere. You know what I'm talking about? You walk into a kitchen and somebody's cooking dinner and all of a sudden it takes you back to your grandma's house. You know, you walk in someplace and all of a sudden it just takes you there. And all of a sudden you're on the beach and you're just like, man, I remember this smell. I remember this time. And it's been years since you've been there, but all of a sudden you remember. Here's what I want you to understand. The way you live, the way you respond, the way you treat each other, the way you raise your kids is a fragrance of remembrance for the rest of their life. Because all of a sudden somebody raises their voice, it's going to take them back to dad. Dad used to always scream at me that way. All of a sudden they hear mom yelling, and they're like, takes me back to my mom. They see a look from somebody that's just a disgusted look. They see a look where I'm here, but I really don't want to be here. I'm around you, but I really don't want to be around you. You're more frustrating to me than you are a blessing. And they watch those faces and they watch that look, and everything that you do is a scent to them that is being downloaded into their mind that at any moment is going to be brought up and it's going to come back. But what if the scent that you were leaving was totally and completely different? What if the scent that you left for your kids was one of, man, mom and dad loved each other. Man, I love kissing my wife. I'm not going to lie, I do. My kids hate it. They're like, quit, Dad, that's disgusting. I'm like, no, it's not. It's what we're supposed to do. You better get a marriage that you love kissing your wife, or you're going to be miserable the rest of your life. And we will stand there and I will kiss her in front of them. Because I want them to see a healthy picture of a marriage. I think the church shies away from it for some reason, and they're just like, oh, that's private stuff. Yeah, it's private in my house, but no, it's also not. We're going to walk through the store, we're going to hold hands, like, we're going to sit and make weird eyes at each other when we're having dinner and everything like that. Like, we're going to do it. Like, that's what we do because we love each other and because she's my wife, and that's what I want to do, and I want my kids to see that. And I want them to see a healthy picture of what a marriage should look like. And so I think a lot of us, what we're doing is we're giving the wrong scent to our kids and they're remembering the wrong thing. What if the scent that you gave them is you on your knees praying for them and praying over them? Man, they walk in and they see somebody down here at the altar and they're like, that reminds me of my mom. My mom prayed. Man, she could, just pray the devil out of anybody. Or they watch their parents share the gospel. They watch their parents read the Bible. They watch their parents not compromise church with other things and give other things more value than their relationship with the Lord. They watch their parents value Christ and Him more than anything else. Or are they watching and they're saying, man, we were always there. We didn't go to church because we were always at these other places. And that's the scent you're giving to your kids. See, what we've got to do is we've got to be a good scent for our kids. The third thing is this, your friends. Here's the thing, you don't always wear a scent. Sometimes you just absorb a scent. You ever walk into a house of a smoker? We visit a lot of people, and sometimes we'll walk into a house, and a smoker is one of those people who don't realize that the scent has overtaken everything. It's just become natural to them, and they don't even smell it anymore. But you leave the house, and now all of a sudden you smell like, a pack of Marlboro Lights. You're like, good, I don't smoke, I promise. I smell like smoke like crazy. Because you've walked into the house and you've absorbed somebody else's scent. I want you to understand your friends will absorb your scent. What you're around, you absorb. What you're around, you absorb. Who you're around, you absorb. If you get around the wrong group, then here's the thing. You start to smell bad. You may pretend like nobody knows. You may pretend like nobody sees it. But the problem is you're wearing a scent that everybody sees and everybody smells. And you're pretending like it's not true when everybody around you is like, man, you smell like them. You're starting to talk like them. You're starting to act like them. You're starting to live like them. You're starting to do the things you know you shouldn't be doing. Why? Because you've absorbed their scent. But what if your friends began to absorb your scent? And it began to change their direction. It began to change what they were doing. It began to change what was okay. And all of a sudden you begin to honor Christ in everything you did, and the scent of Christ comes off of you and begins to get all over them. What if your scent began to have a big effect on people? But the fourth thing is this, your job. Paul says this. He warns about the people who are peddlers of God's word. This describes a shady wine merchant. What they were doing is they were taking the expensive bottles of wine, they were dumping them out, then they were pouring a little bit of that wine back into the bottle, then they would fill it up with water, and then they would fill it up with the cheap stuff, and then they would go sell it for the same price as the original, as the good stuff. Paul says, don't be peddlers of the gospel, meaning this. Don't water it down for the situation that you're in. Don't be a false scent. Don't be something, man, this right here, this is velvet, sage, and driftwood. And this stuff is so watered down, it may last 5 minutes. Doesn't last long at all. And what Paul's saying is, hey, don't be a peddler of the gospel. Don't water down what God's doing. Don't water down what God's saying just in order to make the situation that you're in more comfortable. Don't try to sell them something that the Bible doesn't say. Don't try to conform to the image of the world and water down the gospel so that the world is more comfortable with the gospel than what actually the gospel is saying. Because we shouldn't be comfortable with the gospel. The gospel should offend us. You are a sinner that is on their way to hell. That only by the grace of God can we have life and life everlasting. And it's through Jesus' blood, death, and resurrection on the cross that gives us that hope. That's not a pretty picture. That's telling us we're scum and we need a Savior. But what do? We water it down. Oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's okay. Just, yeah, you can keep doing that. It's not, the Bible doesn't really mean like that. No, it does. And what we've got to do is quit watering it down and quit pretending that it doesn't. And we've got to speak the truth to people no matter how they accept it and what they think. We've just got to give them the truth. That you are loved in spite of your sin. And that you are loved so much that God gave his son for you. He died for you. That's the value of your life to God. In spite of your sin, you have the highest value possible. There is no greater value that can be given to you. But God gave it to you through his son, Jesus. And so don't water it down. But the last thing is this, your city. Paul says that the fragrance should go everywhere. It should cover everything. And so here's the thing. The church should be making a difference in the city. Should be setting the tone. There should be a fragrance that just exudes out of this place, that just overflows this community in a way to where they're like, man, I've never felt more love in all my life. Man, I've never been treated better in all my life. I've never been shared the truth than I have when I went there. I can't tell you, like, there's something different about that place. I've never felt the Spirit of God the way I did when I go by that place. It's different. And there should be this fragrance that comes out of us that begins to affect the entire city. So much so that if for some reason the doors of this place closes, it literally affects the city. The city goes, whoa, we can't let that happen. They got to stay open. They are too valuable and too important for us. They've made too big of a difference. We're going to do whatever we can to keep those doors open because they make that big of a difference. Will you bow your heads? Will you close your eyes? Here's what I want you to understand. You are a scent. The question is, what scent? You and I have the opportunity to walk behind the parade, the victorious parade. We get to carry the scent. We get to be the life. We get to be the joy. We get to be the hope. We get to spread it through the entire city. Or we can dilute our scent and not be effective. And so today, what's your choice? What are you going to be? Are you going to be that silage that lingers, that impacts, that changes people? Or are you going to be that diluted sin that compromises? So right now, with every head bowed, with every eye closed, I just want to, is there anybody in the room who would say, Pastor, I need to get saved today. I need to give my life to Jesus today. I'm not saved, but I need to be, and I want to be, and today is the day of my salvation. Would you just lift your hand up right where you are? So let me see. Here's what I want to ask. Then church, will you be the scent to this community? Will you be the scent in your marriage? Will you be the scent to your kids? Will you be the scent to your friends? Will you begin to make a difference for Christ? Carry that scent everywhere you go? We've won. We have the victory. He's the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. He's defeated sin. He's defeated death. He's conquered the grave. And now you and I have life everlasting. He's won. We're in the parade. We get to carry the scent. He's won. We are victorious. Everywhere you go. God, I pray right now, God, that people would begin to smell us coming. That even today, there's an aroma from this place that is different over this community. That they begin to sniff it and they begin to smell victory. So God, I pray that we will carry the scent, carry it proud, carry it bold. In Jesus' name, amen. Let's stand to our feet. Let's respond to God. Don't leave this place the same person that you walked in as. Leave this place smelling different.